I was watching YouTube over the weekend and up popped our friends Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger at the latest conference in Nebraska, which isn't far from you in Texas. And I guess I might start there with getting your thoughts because I've got some old school mentors as well that don't seem to understand blockchain. But I'm curious what you think when you see someone like Munger, and I'm just going to quote him and put it out there so we can go from there. Charlie Munger, who I think is the CFO of Berkshire Hathaway, who's been Warren's right-hand man for Lord knows how long. He said, and I'm just going to say this, quote, "In my life, I try to avoid things that are stupid, evil, and make me look bad in comparison to someone else. Bitcoin does all three." That was Munger. And Buffett said, "If you told me you owned all the Bitcoin in the world and you offered it me for $25, I wouldn't take it because what would I do with it?" What did you think and what would you say when you see comments like that? How do you process it? How do you explain it? Just give me your thoughts, Jimmy.
Yeah, the way I process it is, these guys are much older, and I've noticed sort of like a generational divide when it comes to Bitcoin. A lot of people that are younger tend to get it a lot faster because they understand that digital things can have value. For older people, for whatever reason, they think that it needs to be physical, that they need to be able to hold it in their hand in order to have value. And that's kind of a fallacy that a lot of older folks fall into, especially people like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. They're all very into the older ideas of value. But if we think about it, there's lots of digital things that have value. Your subscription to Netflix has value. That's why you pay for it. It's it's kind of like saying, okay, well, because I can't hold it in my hand, it doesn't have value. That's the equivalent of saying, because I can't have a cassette tape or a CD in my hand, it's not really music or something like that. Of course it's music. You can hear it in your ears. That's kind of the whole point. But yeah, I suspect that both of those guys, they deserve respect because they've been able to play this game. But I actually think that a lot of the ways that they've made money is actually quite immoral. They've been able to leverage and get a lot of Cantillon effects from fiat money printing, and that's a large part of how they've become so rich. And when your tool is a hammer, and everything looks like a nail, you're like, what the heck is this Bitcoin thing? Personally think, Warren Buffett in particular lost his fastball like 15, 20 years ago. He hasn't been investing in anything innovative for a while. So I don't see why people listen to him other than to see, okay, what are older people thinking? Because there are a group of older people that do look at it. But we don't go to, we shouldn't be going to Bill Gates for health advice. I don't think we should be going to, older people that don't really understand digital technology about Bitcoin.
It's funny because I saw an interview recently with Elon Musk, and he said quite bluntly that it seems obvious that sometimes ideas have to die out with the people that have them. And I think, Elon's very good about just being blunt and honest with the way he sees systems. But when I saw those two guys, who, again, lauded for their investment, prowess. Of course, it is leveraged off that fiat money system and all the borrowing, which we can get to. It just made me think, wow, maybe that's true. Maybe there's a reason we all have lifespans. And again, my daughter's 18. She's got a hot wallet now. She grew up in a digital world, and she would never say the same thing they said. And also, like you said, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and their whole life has been built on this fiat system. One of the things Munger also said after that was Bitcoin threatens the Federal Reserve System and our currency system. And after talking with people like you on a regular basis, I thought, did he just say that? And so obviously the institution that built them and their wealth is something they naturally protect, even if they're trying to be objective, right? And this is kind of what we do as humans, right?
Yeah, and that's Upton Sinclair's quote. It's hard to get a man to understand something if his job depends on not understanding it. And that seems to be the case with Munger and Buffett and many of these older people. And they did make their money off of, all of the money printing that comes through. And they can leverage and do all sorts of weird financial games. And that's really the tragedy of, I would say, the last 50 years or so, is that so much of the best and the brightest in the world, right? They want to be Buffett and not, the scientist that makes rockets go to Mars or something like that. Instead, you have I mean, think about all the people that graduated with you in college or something. The people from the Ivy League schools and all that. They went to what industries did they go into? Most likely they went into investment banking because that was the place that was easiest to work at and make a lot of money rather than, pushing humanity forward and building something that everyone could use and make their lives better. Instead, it's, pushing paper around and, leveraging things here and there. And that became the way in which all of these people made their money. And that just seems completely wasteful. It's one of the tragedies of the fiat monetary system.
Yeah, I think you, Jimmy, have said that like we haven't done something properly innovative since we put the man on the moon, I think is what you said. And you see a lot of people like the Gates of the world who their job is to kind of grow this wealth to become more wealth. But you're like, okay, but where's the innovation there? And again, I'm guilty. I was getting an engineering degree at MIT and I got seduced into Wall Street because I was like, wow, look at all this stuff. And I went down that route. Just tell me a little bit more of what you think about that. Do you think that is our last big innovation, the man on the moon?
Yeah, if you do think about the way humanity has progressed, and this is part of why I wear the cowboy hat. By the way, it's this idea of going out into the frontier and pushing the boundaries of the frontier, and that was how the West was won, was a bunch of frontiersmen that went out and continued to expand civilization that way. And space is, as we say in Star Trek or whatever, it's the final frontier. It's the frontier that we want to expand into. And I think that's where humanity's, destination lies, is expanding that way too. But since 1969, when we landed man on the moon, civilization to a large degree has stopped expanding. Instead, it's been mostly navel gazing, right? Like you have or almost $1 trillion companies in like Apple, Google, Facebook, and Netflix, I guess, for a while there, or Microsoft or whatever. These are all not really pushing anything forward. It's okay, well, we can now be more entertained and consume more stuff rather than let's expand and go out into the frontier and make something new. And that to me is what Bitcoin is. It's like one of the few frontiers left out there, rather than something like selling more ads so people can click more. I think the quote that I heard a while back, which was very relevant to me as a programmer, is the best and the brightest for a while there was investment banking are now competing to get one click, right? Like that extra click so that you get paid on the ads or whatever. That seems just as sad as going into investment banking, because like all of that is really not expanding the frontiers of human knowledge, expanding the frontiers of human territory or conquest over nature and so on. So Bitcoin is one of the few places, like I said.